The financial world watched in disbelief as former President Donald J. Trump, in a move that shocked even his closest advisors, announced sweeping new tariffs on imports. This announcement sent ripples through the global economy, causing immediate reactions from markets and governments alike. These were not targeted measures aimed at specific industries or countries. Instead, they were broad and indiscriminate, affecting a wide range of goods and services. The scale and scope of these tariffs were unprecedented in modern economic history. This was a full-blown trade war. The announcement led to immediate protests and heated debates across the nation. People gathered in town halls and public squares, voicing their concerns and fears about the potential fallout. A blanket tariff of 10% would be imposed on goods from every corner of the globe, affecting everything from electronics to clothing, and even food products. Businesses scrambled to understand the new regulations and how they would impact their operations, with even higher levies reserved for around 60 nations deemed particularly troublesome to American interests. These higher tariffs targeted countries that were seen as economic threats or had trade practices that were considered unfair by the administration. The European Union, Canada, China, India, all found themselves in the crosshairs of this unprecedented protectionist offensive. These nations quickly responded with their own set of tariffs, leading to a tit-for-tat escalation that threatened global trade stability. The rationale, as presented by the former president and his supporters, was simple: protect American jobs, punish unfair trade practices, and bring back manufacturing might to the heartland. They argued that these measures would revitalize American industry and reduce dependency on foreign goods. The reality, as economists and world leaders were quick to point out, was far more complex and potentially devastating. They warned that such broad tariffs could lead to higher prices for consumers, supply chain disruptions, and strained international relations. The long-term impact on the global economy remained uncertain, but the immediate shockwave was undeniable. The immediate reaction from the stock market was swift and brutal. Investors were left reeling as the numbers on their screens turned red almost instantaneously. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, a key barometer of investor sentiment, plunged nearly 4% in a single day, its worst performance since the dark days of 2020. The sudden drop sent shockwaves through the financial community, leaving analysts scrambling to understand the underlying causes. The S&P 500, a broader measure of the market, fared even worse, shedding almost 6% of its value. This index, which includes a wide range of industries, reflected the widespread panic and uncertainty that had gripped investors across the board. Tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite Index wasn't spared either, tumbling close to 5%. The tech sector, often seen as a growth engine, faced a harsh reality check as major companies saw their stock prices plummet. It was a bloodbath, plain and simple. The trading floors were scenes of chaos, with traders in despair and the air thick with tension. The sheer scale of the losses was unprecedented, leaving many to wonder how long the downturn would last. Investors, caught off guard by the sheer audacity of the move, scrambled for the exits, dumping stocks and seeking refuge in safe haven assets like gold, which saw its price surge towards record highs. The flight to safety was a clear indication of the fear and uncertainty that had taken hold. The message was clear: uncertainty had gripped the markets, and fear was the order of the day. Investors were left to navigate a landscape fraught with volatility, unsure of what the future would hold. The events of the day would be remembered as a stark reminder of the market's inherent unpredictability. The international community reacted with a mixture of anger and apprehension. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, her voice laced with barely concealed fury, denounced the tariffs as a major blow to the rules-based global trading system. She warned of dire consequences, including a surge in inflation that would hit consumers worldwide, and vowed swift retaliation. Canada, caught in the crossfire despite being a close ally and neighbor, expressed deep disappointment and promised tit-for-tat tariffs on a range of American goods. China, already embroiled in a long-running trade dispute with the United States, threatened to take all necessary measures to protect its interests. India, too, signaled its intent to respond in kind. The world, it seemed, was not going to take this lying down. Economists, long wary of the former president's penchant for protectionism, sounded the alarm bells. They had been closely monitoring the administration's trade policies, and the imposition of tariffs was a major concern. These experts with years of experience in global markets knew the potential repercussions of such measures. The tariffs, they warned, would inevitably lead to higher prices for consumers on everything from cars and appliances to clothing and food. This wasn't just speculation. Historical data showed that tariffs often resulted in increased costs for everyday items. Consumers already feeling the pinch from other economic pressures would find their budgets stretched even thinner. The tariffs, they argued, would act as a drag on economic growth, potentially tipping the United States and indeed the world into a recession. The interconnected nature of the global economy meant that a slowdown in one major economy could have ripple effects worldwide. Investors and businesses were already showing signs of anxiety, with stock markets reacting to the uncertainty. The specter of stagflation, a toxic combination of stagnant growth and soaring inflation, loomed large. This scenario, reminiscent of the economic troubles of the 1970s, was particularly worrisome. Stagflation could lead to prolonged economic pain, with high unemployment and rising prices creating a challenging environment for policymakers and citizens alike. The tariffs were not just an economic threat, they were also attacks on American households. Families across the country would feel the impact in their daily lives, from higher grocery bills to increased costs for essential goods. This hidden tax would disproportionately affect lower-income households, exacerbating existing inequalities. The nonpartisan Yale Budget Lab estimated that the tariffs could cost the average household around $3,800 per year in lost purchasing power. This significant sum could mean the difference between financial stability and hardship for many families. The research highlighted the broader economic implications, showing how tariffs could erode consumer confidence and spending. For working families already struggling to make ends meet, this represented a significant blow. Many were already relying on community support and aid to get by. The additional financial burden from tariffs could push them further into economic distress, making it even harder to achieve financial security. The specter of inflation was not just an abstract economic concept, it was a real and pressing concern for millions of Americans. Section 5. Lesotho and the Price of Protectionism. While the tariffs were broad in their scope, their impact was not evenly distributed. Some countries were singled out for particularly harsh treatment. One such nation was Lesotho, a small landlocked kingdom in southern Africa, which found itself slapped with a staggering 50% reciprocal tariff. This seemingly arbitrary decision highlighted one of the most troubling aspects of the tariffs, their lack of transparency and clear economic rationale. Why Lesotho? Why 50%? The administration offered no clear answers, fueling suspicions that the tariffs were motivated more by political expediency than sound economic policy. Section 6. Cars, Costs, and Chaos. The automotive industry, a pillar of the American economy and a major employer, found itself caught in the crosshairs of the trade war. The 25% tariff on imported cars and parts, a key component of the administration's protectionist agenda, sent shockwaves through the industry, disrupting supply chains and threatening to drive up prices for consumers. Car dealerships across the country were flooded with anxious buyers, hoping to snap up vehicles before the tariffs took effect. Inventory dwindled rapidly, and prices soared as demand outstripped supply. The tariffs, far from protecting American jobs, were creating chaos and uncertainty in a vital sector of the economy. Section 7. Political Pushback. The tariffs did not go unchallenged on the domestic front. A bipartisan group of lawmakers, alarmed by the potential economic fallout, introduced legislation aimed at curbing the former president's tariff powers. They argued that such sweeping trade measures required congressional approval and could not be enacted unilaterally by the executive branch. The debate over the tariffs exposed deep divisions within the Republican Party, with some members breaking ranks with the former president to condemn the move. They argued that the tariffs were self-defeating, harming American businesses and consumers, while doing little to address the underlying challenges facing the U.S. economy. Section 8. The Road Ahead. As the dust settled on the initial shock of the tariffs, the world held its breath, waiting to see how the trade war would play out. Would other countries retaliate in kind, triggering a tit-for-tat escalation that could spiral out of control? Would the tariffs achieve their stated goals of protecting American jobs and boosting domestic manufacturing? Or would they simply lead to higher prices, lost markets, and economic hardship? The answers to these questions remained frustratingly elusive. One thing, however, was certain. The global trading system, already strained by years of rising protectionism and geopolitical tensions, had just been dealt a body blow, and its recovery was far from assured. Section 9. Conclusion. A world on edge. The imposition of sweeping tariffs by the former president marked a dangerous escalation in the global trade war. The immediate impact was a stock market crash, reflecting the fear and uncertainty gripping the financial world. The tariffs triggered a wave of condemnation and threats of retaliation from countries around the globe, raising the specter of a full-blown trade war. Economists warned of dire consequences, including inflation, recession, and job losses. The long-term impact of these tariffs remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the world is now on edge, bracing for the fallout of this protectionist gamble.